How good is AI going to be for the majority of businesses over the next 3 years?
For the majority of businesses, it's going to probably leave them in the dust because they're not using it, they're not paying attention to it.
Tell me how important personal branding is.
So the personal brand is essentially everything. Why does Elon Musk get cut through with rockets and cars and everything else he's doing? Because we're following Elon Musk.
What are the first steps you would do if you wanted to create your own personal brand?
So we talk about the big five: pitching, publishing, products, profile, and partnership. If you're an entrepreneur today, you have to build a personal brand. You've got to be the storyteller. The new way of doing business is to be psychologically close to your client. Mr. Beast, he's psychologically close to his audience. Raising profile is all about being on the same platforms and the same stages of people who have big profiles too.
What's one business you would set up if you only had £500 to your name?
I boiled down the first 4 things that you need if you're going to start a business. There's a very narrow little circle of things that work in business. So the trick is you have to
Daniel, welcome to the show, mate.
Mate, we made it. We've been talking about doing this for 6 months.
We have, and we're finally here.
We're finally here.
Yeah, mate, looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to this one because it's a different one for us because it's sitting down with 2 entrepreneurs, and kind of what I want to get out of this is for the listeners and viewers to learn as much as they possibly can about entrepreneurship, startups, being CEOs, etc. So let's roll all the way back. How did you know when you become an entrepreneur?
I had an experience when I was 10 years old where I didn't have a word for entrepreneur, but we had a fire in the house, in the kitchen, and it damaged all this stuff. And I got in my head at age 10 that I was going to clean all the stuff and then I was going to sell it. And in the experience of cleaning this stuff up and selling it, I had an amazing experience of like, wow, I can do this. And I did it on my own. There was a magical moment where I was negotiating with this guy for a microwave sale. And he wanted to talk to my dad, and my dad came out and said, look, it's his business. You have to deal with him, and walk back into the house. And it was so cool. Yeah. It was just like this idea of his business. Then when I was about 15, I got a job at McDonald's. I fell in love with working at McDonald's. I know that sounds like such a weird thing to say, but I was being trusted to run a multi-million-dollar restaurant. By 15, I was a crew trainer, so I was training other staff. I would run the whole kitchen. So there was this thing called production calling where you actually choose how many burgers get produced in each run, and you choose how much food gets made, and you're kind of trying to predict the trends and all this sort of stuff in the kitchen. So you're looking at how many people are coming in and how busy it is and what kind of food they're going to order. So at 15, we were doing, during busy lunch rushes, we were doing what was called a $2,000 half, which means $2,000 every 30 minutes. And that's actually quite a lot of food.
Yeah, absolutely.
7, 8 registers going with people queuing up
at that age register. When you were 15, were you thinking business then? Were you thinking numbers? Were you thinking sums?
I started to think about it. I got talking to the guy who owned the McDonald's, and he encouraged me to get the franchise kit and start having a look at owning a McDonald's, which was kind of cool. My dad was listening to these cassette tapes. Back in the 90s, you had cassette tapes in the car. So I'd listen in the car about business. And then I came across a book that a lot of us came across called The E-Myth, which was all about starting an entrepreneurial business and systemizing it and scaling it. So I just started geeking out on this thing called entrepreneurship. I grew up in a beachside town called the Sunshine Coast in Australia. And everyone was interested in surfing and building and trades and laboring and all this sort of stuff. And I just didn't really resonate with a lot of that. So I was looking for the thing that was my thing, and kind of entrepreneurship became my thing. Yeah. And then at 18, I started running nightclub parties.
Did you?
Yeah. And then I absolutely adored the whole process of securing a venue, going out and promoting it, securing sponsors, getting people lining up at the door.
Yeah. That's a buzz, isn't it?
Oh, and then the cash at the end of the night.
We miss cash. Oh, God, we miss cash.
I used to get those travel wallets.
Yeah.
And, when you have 1,000 people who pay $10 a head,
it's a lot of cash.
It's a lot of cash in little notes.
Yeah.
And I remember, we used to strap the travel wallets to go home. And like on the way home, you know, there's thousands of dollars worth of cash strapped to our tummies. It was great.
We used to have, when we were peaking in the nightclubs, we used to have army trousers. I used to have like 8, not the camouflage ones, but like the cool beige ones. But more pockets they had, the more cash you could stash in them.
Yes.
And then you'd leave the club with a rucksack as well. It's like you had to fear that. You had to look out. You had to look out. You know, you go into your car every night. Did that for 10 years, looking at who's going to come and rob you, or someone's going to clock you're the promoter of the money. And keeps you on your toes.
It's a great feeling, and the excitement, the rush of seeing the party come together, as you know.
Yeah.
So that was all when I was 18. I ran a party every couple of months.
Whereabouts?
So I was in Brisbane. Initially, I went to university. I dropped out after year one, but basically Brisbane had an incredible nightlife, by the way. Like there was this great nightclubs.
I like Brisbane.
Incredible nightclubs. And we secured this place called City Rowers, which was kind of the number one nightclub for city folks, city people. It wasn't the grungy, clubby kind of nightclub. But we secured this and we ran a series of parties with them. And then I moved up to Noosa on the Sunshine Coast. And
Noosa Heads.
Yeah. And we secured the Noosa Reef Hotel nightclub, and we ran a series of parties there, and it was great.
I love Oz.
One of my favorite things was when I got the local radio station to take the naming rights in exchange for $4 or $5 grand worth of radio ads.
Yeah.
And I got the nightclub to give us the venue for free because we had $4 or $5 grand worth of radio ads. Yeah. And I kind of, as an 18-year-old kid, stood in the middle and had a radio station promoting it. Yeah. And I had a venue that was the top venue doing it for free. And they were giving us the ads for free. We were getting the club for free. And then we were getting all the sponsors giving all the prizes for free.
And you're taking the door.
And taking the door.
Yeah, happy days.
It was great.
Yeah, amazing feeling. How were you? Let's talk about marketing. Back then, marketing pre-social media was very different. You know, I had 10 years or more than 10 years of promoting with flyers and posters and word of mouth and did everything you had to do, where you were fly posting or flyer on every person that moved in the streets or underneath people's doors or windscreens, etc. How were you marketing back then?
Flyers and posters.
Yeah, okay. And we're talking what? We're talking mid-90s here?
This was late 90s.
Okay.
So it would have been 99.
Okay.
Because having worked at McDonald's, I knew that every McDonald's had about 60 kids that worked there. So we used to do posters for the crew rooms at McDonald's, and they all had money. And then we'd do the posters for the crew rooms at KFC and for all of the different places. And then we'd do the malls. Everyone would hang out at the malls. So we'd just go and hand out flyers at the malls. And then we'd do the beaches, go down the beach and hand out flyers at the beach.
That's the fun bit down the beach,
isn't it? It's great.
That's the best bit.
And you get used to going up to girls and talking to girls, right? One of our easiest ways to fill nightclub parties was just put flyers in the hands of the girls. And if the girls go, the boys go.
Absolutely. That's the key. Absolute key. What were your movements then after 18 years old?
So I dropped out of university and I put it out there to everyone I could tell that I was wanting to work for an experienced entrepreneur. I wanted to have an opportunity to work in a startup. So I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't feel that I was ready to be a proper entrepreneur. So I wanted to work for a proper entrepreneur.
Okay. Good move. Yep.
It was really cool.
Yep.
So I got this invitation to go and have my dad, through his contacts, said, actually, I know a guy who's starting a business. So I went up and met this guy called John. And John was 37, 38 years old. He had 3 kids, young kids. And he had this whopping big, massive house on the Noosa waters. So it was a waterfront home, designer home, and one of these like really impressive, like you know those houses that look big and impressive, right? It was one of those houses. So I got the opportunity to go up there. I knock on the door and I'm like, whoa, whoever's behind this door, I want to work for them, right? If they live here. John answers the door and he's in his shorts and his flip-flops, and I walk around the corner into this cool office and he's got all of the business books and he's got like really nice desk and the kids are running around and he's got a gorgeous wife and, you know, all of this stuff. And I'm like, I just have to work for this guy. So I had a 30-minute meeting with him scheduled, but we ended up talking for 3 hours. And he didn't have a business name, bank account. None of that stuff was in place. He had a list that he was going to launch to with about 15,000 physical addresses on it from his previous business. And basically he was launching a new business. So I'm around a kitchen table. There's myself and an admin girl, John, and his wife, Connie. And we're basically sitting there with a big 12-month schedule. And we're just saying, okay, this is going to be our launch event. Then we're going to do this. And what are we going to call the company? What should we name it? And what should our first headline be? And so basically real, like just startup stuff. Dan, jump in the car with me. We're going to head down the bank and we're going to get a credit card machine so that we can process credit cards, right?
Great.
So real early stage. So for 2 years I worked for John. And we went from 0 to 6 million of revenue and 60 employees, and we went to inner city Melbourne offices.
60 employees, was it? Wow.
Yeah. So all in 2 years. So it went from complete standing start to 60 people in inner city Melbourne office. We were up on the beach down to the city. So I had that hands-on full experience of what it's like to do a proper startup that goes multi-million.
Without the risk.
Yeah.
Amazing. Anyone out there, I always talk about this, but if you're out there wanting to become an entrepreneur, start a business, go and work for someone and become an apprenticeship and be the right-hand person or be the second or third there. Just go and show.
You have to.
You have to. You'll learn so much. Everyone in here, our staff here, I want them to be entrepreneurs in the business. Yeah. There you go. Learn.
I counted the other day that I personally have 12 of my ex-employees who have gone on to do a multi-million-dollar startup.
Fantastic.
So they're like 7-figure to 8-figure revenue. They're ex-employees. I texted one of them whose business is really booming, and he's just launched a side product that did 600 grand in its first month. I said, "How much of my stuff do you use?" He's like, "All of it."
Yeah. Amazing. How do you when you're employing people and you see people learn off you? Excuse me. How do you feel when they hand their notice in and say, well, I'm going to go and set up by myself?
It depends. It depends on what the circumstances. A lot of the time, 90% of the time, it's with my blessing, and it's been like totally fine. I know that a lot of my team are part of my team because they want to learn.
Yeah.
And we always have hundreds of people who want to apply for jobs with us anyway. So every time I open up a role, we're inundated. I've got about 100 employees now. So
in one business or across a few businesses?
Across the group, yeah.
Okay. And how many businesses you currently got?
I think it's 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you acquiring business? How many of those businesses have you set up yourself from startup?
3 are startups and 7 are acquisitions or something like that.
And what's easier for you? Being an entrepreneur, like ourselves, I enjoy startups. I enjoy the chaos. I enjoy the madness.
Yeah.
I enjoy all of that. But as we're getting a little bit older, kind of looking in, going, it's actually probably easier to go and acquire a business with good management, good in place, and then just take the marketing to a whole new level and see if you can streamline everything to make it a profitable business. Yeah,
it's more fun to start a business and it's easier to scale a business. So several of the businesses that I bought when they were around $500,000, and then we took them up to like $2.5 million.
Okay.
And that run from $500,000 to $2.5 million is actually good fun, and
that's still fun, isn't it?
And it's good bang for buck. It's funny. The first $500,000 of revenue is probably halfway to $2 million of revenue.
Yeah.
Because the amount of effort and energy to get from 0 to $500,000, the same effort and energy applied again will take you to 2 to 3 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've done that a few times. I've sold a number of businesses as well. So I've got a group of companies that I've currently owned. I've just completed an acquisition last week. We did something that never happens. A British company bought an American company.
Okay, lovely.
Yeah. So this great company called Bucket, they were on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies in America for 3 years in a row. And we just bought them, which is actually very rare that a British company would buy a fast growth software company in the US.
And what do they do?
So very similar to my main company, ScoreApp. Yep. So ScoreApp is a software company. We're one of the 50 fastest growing companies in the UK. We have software that is essentially marketing software. We use AI to generate quizzes and surveys. We do customer segmentation, customer insights. We do marketing lead generation. We have about 7,000 customers around the world, 150 countries. And then Bucket has about 2,000.
Just hold me on that one there.
Mm-hmm.
How can someone apply ScoreApp to their business if they've got an online course, for example?
Before someone buys an online course, they want to know if that course is right for them.
Yeah.
So rather than trying to sell the online course, sell the assessment to see if someone needs the online course, and then if they come out a certain way, then then sell the online course. So let's say you've got an online training program, how to become a wedding planner, right? So you might do a quiz. Are you suitable to be a wedding planner? Which kind of wedding planner are you? Which kind of event manager are you? You might say, answer 12 questions and discover if you can be a high-performing wedding planner. Yeah. So they answer the quiz. Now you've engaged, you've got data about them, and then you say, based on how you answered, we think you should do this training.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's
what a great business model. Doesn't it just break down that barrier of someone being cold to your business? Going, here you go, here's an online training events management course. We're going to put this in place. You answer all these questions. How many questions are like sort of the optimal questions where you're not going to bore people with answering?
If it's pure lead generation, like you just want to generate lots of leads fast, you don't want to go above 12 questions. Okay. And probably 5 to 12 questions is optimal. When we launch, one of the strategies is to launch a waiting list. And a waiting list is basically, let's say you're going to launch a new product, rather than just making it available, join the waiting list. Yeah. But when someone joins the waiting list, you ask 5 to 12 questions. So for example, if you're going to have a new festival that happens next year, join the waiting list. Let's say you want to have sponsors, join the waiting list to become a sponsor.
Interesting.
If you want to launch a new piece of software and you're not sure whether you should do it or not, do the expression of interest form and answer the questions. So like this morning, I was having a meeting with my team and we were talking about we're going to do an enterprise version of our software. So we're just going to launch the waiting list and we're going to try and get 100 corporates to join the waiting list for the enterprise version. But to join the waiting list, they'll have to answer about 10 questions that tell us a bit about them. So if you're doing lead generation, 5 to 12 questions is good. Bottom of funnel, traditional bottom of funnel. Right before someone talks to a salesperson, 20 to 40 questions is actually optimal.
Okay.
To learn lots and lots about them.
And if someone's going to go through that process and answer 40 questions, you know when you receive their information, they're serious.
They're serious.
Yeah.
And you also know a lot about them. So in the same way, if you went to a doctor and you said, look, I've been having this reoccurring issue with my elbow, and the doctor says, we're just going to put your knee in a clamp. And you go, what?
Yeah.
Right? That makes no sense. But if the doctor says we're going to do an X-ray and have a look at what's going on, we'll do an MRI, we'll do some, we'll actually do some investigating, and then they come back and say, okay, we've identified what the issue is. So a lot of what most businesses do, they are just selling a solution to people who aren't sure if they need it and aren't sure if they actually want it yet. If you sell the assessment or sell the diagnostic, then people get themselves clear as to why they want the product.
Yeah.
So that's the goal. The goal is to use these assessments and these tools as a way of getting the customer to self-assess and self-diagnose that they want the product. Yeah.
What a fantastic idea.
Yeah, it's good.
Where did you get the idea from?
I wrote a book called Key Person of Influence, and I wanted a way for people to engage with the book beyond just reading it. So I had a quiz that says, are you ready to be a key person of influence? Answer 40 questions to find out your key person of influence personal branding score. And I launched that with the book. And eventually 90,000 people took that quiz.
90,000 on the first hit?
No, it was over a couple of years.
Okay.
So over the launch of the book, and people would read the book and take the quiz, or they'd take the quiz and read the book. So you could either start with the quiz and then buy the book, or you could start with the book and then get the quiz. So it was basically the quiz and the book went hand in hand. And what was really cool is the book talks about all the things you need to do to build your personal brand. The quiz quizzes you whether you do all those things or not. So it tells you which...
Your answers,
right? So it tells you what score. And then off the back of that, we did about $20 million worth of sales. So we did 90,000 people took the quiz, and then $20 million worth of sales came in because of how clear it was. People would take the quiz, they'd spot a deficiency, and then they'd say, I want to fix that. So it was very, very easy for my sales team to just call up people and say, hey, I saw that you did the quiz today. I wanted to reach out, and I saw you're weak on partnerships, and you want to put some partnerships in place. Let's discuss it. Right? People loved it. So it was very, very powerful. And then dozens of my clients, they said to me, can I get one of those quizzes? How did you build that? I said, I worked with this agency that we own called Sotec. And they said, okay, can I go to Sotec? And I said, of course you can, right? So I send them over to Sotec, and Sotec builds them a quiz. And then a dozen of these came through, and I spoke to Steve, who runs SoTech, and we said, we should just build this as a platform. This is really good. So we started toying with the idea of building a platform. We launched the platform, a few hundred people signed up, a few thousand people signed up, and then over the pandemic, thousands of people signed up.
I bet.
Because everyone was looking to remotely engage people.
Yeah.
So we just exploded during the pandemic.
So someone's done your scorecard. What are you actually selling on the back of that?
So me personally?
Yeah.
You mean the Key Person of Influence?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had this thing called the Key Person of Influence Accelerator, and it was a personal brand accelerator, pretty much the first one ever launched. Launched it 15 years ago. And you go through a process of building your personal brand with mentoring and support and resources. And then we've had 5,500 people come through that. And it's an incredible transformational experience.
And when like we're now with the pandemic and everyone, the whole sort of the word at the moment about personal branding. Tell me how important personal branding is as a business owner these days.
Well, there's three brands that people could engage with. There is a personal brand where you engage with the founder of the brand, the person who's behind it. There's the business brand, and then there's the product brand. So think Tim Cook of Apple, Apple or iPad. So you might get excited about an iPad and want to look at that and then look into Apple and then discover Tim Cook, or you might learn about Tim Cook and then discover Apple and then discover an iPad. So if we think about those three brands, every product has a promise that is like, this product does this. It's really good for this particular thing. So that's a product. Every business has a set of values, and essentially you go to that business because you like that values, and every leader or every person has a story, and you like their story, and you like their vision, and you like their origin, and you like their mission, and you like them, and then you want to do everything that they're involved in. So historically, we had faceless businesses and products, and we didn't think much about the people. But over the last 15 years, since social media has been a major force in our lives, social media has emphasized the importance of the personal brand. So the personal brand is essentially everything. Why does Elon Musk, get cut through with rockets and cars and, everything else he's doing? Because we're following Elon Musk. So his value proposition to a company is, if he's involved, he gets attention, he gets engineers who sign up, he gets cut through with, all the red tape. So he makes things happen. So therefore, if it's an Elon Musk company,
it's got to be good.
It's got to be good.
Yeah.
Tim Cook has twice as many followers on social media as Apple. Now, Apple's considered to be the most powerful business brand, and Tim Cook has 2 times as many. Now, he's an introvert. He doesn't share very much. He doesn't want you to know about his personal life, but he's got twice as many followers as Apple. How's this? One football player, Cristiano Ronaldo, has 650 million followers, and all the football clubs combined has 220 million.
Yeah. So, wild.
Yeah. And like Messi, Ronaldo, any of these guys, they eclipse the entire league. So this is what we've learned. We've learned that essentially, if you're an entrepreneur today, you have to build a personal brand. You've got to be the storyteller. What I'm not saying is be an influencer. You don't have to photograph your breakfast and tell everyone what you do on the weekend and all that sort of stuff. But you've got to be the person who represents that brand. People want to know. I
think the way the world is going over the last year is influencers are starting to diminish, and I think creators are starting to come on the rise. And I think what's happening is when creators are on the rise, people are actually really believing in what they're saying rather than influencers just getting paid to say something.
Yes.
And I've seen a massive shift in that over the last few years. How have you seen a shift in that?
Well, I've been following this trend for a long time.
Yeah. Just hold me on that thought there. You're way above the curve here.
Yeah.
You spotted this 15 years ago.
I wrote a book about it.
You wrote it 15 years ago about a key person of influence.
Yeah.
Where did you get that idea from? You must have seen somewhere that going, you know what, this is the future.
Yeah. So if you remember, 2007 was when Facebook popped into everyone's lives. Prior to that, we were all on MySpace. I don't know if you were on MySpace. So I noticed that MySpace, when I joined MySpace, I made a post saying, I can't believe MySpace has over 8 million people. And the actual founder of MySpace, Tom, posted it to his wall and said, 8 million, try 80 million. And thousands of people from all over the world were laughing and commenting that I was so behind that I thought it was 8 million, it was 80 million. Anyway, it was kind of like put it on my radar. This was like 2004, 2005. Facebook comes out 2007. The big moment for me was 2008, Barack Obama did this campaign called Obama Everywhere. And he had this block of text on his website where you could connect with him everywhere. You could click on it and go to his Facebook page. You could click on it and go to his Twitter. You could go to his YouTube channel. And I saw that Obama's marketing campaign centered around social media and his personal brand and the way he was interacting online. Now, at the same time, I'm trying to fill events and I'm doing corporate events and we're doing all of this sort of stuff. I'm discovering that any of our speakers who have got a bit of a personal brand online, they can pull twice the crowd.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this thing's going to be big. This is not a toy. This is a big thing. I started looking into presidential elections and discovered that US presidential elections are often the turning point for different technologies. So FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, he did something called the fireside chat in the 30s, which was where he would actually go on national radio and talk directly to voters. And he did that every night. And this became huge, and it actually was the turning point from print media to radio. In 1960, JFK did a televised debate with Nixon, where he won because of how handsome he was and how good he looked and how leadership-like he was on camera. Anyone who listened on the radio thought it was Nixon who was better. Anyone who watched thought it was JFK who was better. And that was the turning point for television from radio. So there's these moments where things happen. So I recognize that 2008 was the shift, the moment from print and television and all of those kind of traditional media to social media. And I went, okay, we got to be, every single person has to build themselves a personal brand. So I wrote the book in 2009 after the Obama campaign.
Fair play to you. Love it. Tell me what your thoughts are, the difference between a influencer and a creator as we sit today, because I think that things are changing very quickly.
Well, the influencer was just someone who essentially, look, if we boil it down, they essentially used their good looks to build a big following. And that was the influencer. And it was, we go on Instagram and there's a good looking guy or girl and we go, oh, I want to see more of them. And they show lots of pictures of their abs and their bum and their muscles. And, you know, it's like, okay, great. I'll have some more of that. Thank you very much. So they build hundreds of thousands or millions of followers and they go and live fabulous lives. And it's kind of like, you know, watching a glossy magazine, you know, and you say, oh, wow, they're in Dubai this week and they're in, you know, Monaco and wow, that's cool. A creator is often someone who's a bit more of an entrepreneur. They're actually building something. They may not be super sexy in a bikini or a set of swim shorts, but they're actually building something. They're going through struggles. They're going through challenges and they're being open about, I'm building something and you can have a look at how I'm building it and you can be privy to my decisions and all of that sort of stuff. They're also not saying, look at me. They're saying, look at this.
Yeah, look at the content. Yeah.
Look at this thing. So they might say, don't look at me and my abs. Look at this trend that's happening and how that's unfolding. And look at this data and look at this research. And they're kind of almost thinking more about the value for the consumer or the watcher or the listener or the, you know, the audience, rather than thinking about look at me. I am the value. It's like, no, I'm sharing this journey of value creation with you.
With your first business, your first proper business, I want to dig deeper in the highs and lows and the pressures you went to create a business.
Sure.
We've all started business and we know what that feeling's like. I enjoy the chaos. I enjoy the risk, but not everyone enjoys the chaos and enjoys the risk of creating a business. How can you explain what you went through?
Mind you, my first proper business, I was 21 years old. I'm 43 now. So this is 22 years ago. And it was, I can talk about that, but I've also been starting businesses like this year. So I regularly start businesses.
But it's easier to start at the age we're at now for knowing what we know. It's a lot easier because
it is.
One, we've got money behind us, which helps. And two, we've got 20 odd years experience and
the experience
contacts.
is more interesting than the money. The money, having money behind you can actually work against you.
Yeah. If you're not used to earning that money. If you've been given the money, I think there's more pressure on kids with trust funds these days than there are people with...
Well, it's also the fact that the first phase of business, getting started, is more about fast, cheap experiments and rolling up your sleeves and doing things that don't scale. Yeah. And money can confuse you and make you think, I can spend my way into this business. And you actually can't. You have to feel your way into a business. Yeah. So you have to, if you can't feel your way into the business, you won't succeed. You can't spend your way into the business, right? So it's kind of like, it's that whole process that you have to do something that money can't do. And that's why people back founders with investment, because they're doing something that they can't do themselves just through spending. They're feeling their way into the market. But yeah, look, my first business, 2002, I decided to quit my job with John and go and start my own business. I'd been putting a lot of expenses on my credit card with John, so I had a $25,000 credit card limit.
Is that what you had to your name, just that, or did you have any cash on the side?
No, I just had, I was in debt. I had a car that I'd bought, a new car, and I bought that with debt. So I had car payments. I had an expensive inner city Melbourne apartment that was, expensive.
Party apartment?
It was a pretty good party apartment. Yeah,
good.
It was one of those ones where I was living central London, central Melbourne, and of course everyone would come to our place before and after a party. It was great. So really the only startup capital I had was just a credit card. And in those days, having said you can't spend your way into the market, in those days, you kind of had to launch with a newspaper ad.
Yeah.
So it was a quarter-page newspaper ad, which was $8,000. And if you got it wrong, you could easily spend $8,000 and get nothing back. If you got it right, you could spend $8,000 and get 100 or 200 leads, inquiries that you could then sell to.
Yeah.
So I launched my business with an $8,000 ad in the paper. I basically, on day one, we got hardly any inquiries, and I genuinely thought, what am I going to do? How am I going to get myself out of this? And then on day two, the leads came in, and day three, they actually started coming in. I was shocked actually, because I ran the ad on a Sunday, and it wasn't until Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that the leads really started coming in. I would have thought they would come in earlier, but basically I probably had something like 140 leads come in, and then we got going, and we so
just make it work.
How
easy do you think it is for an entrepreneur to start today? Say if you're a 20-year-old starting today, you're seeing on social media that someone's sitting in Bali and by the pool and having a pina colada and working with their laptop open, and you're thinking, I need a piece of that. There's a lot of young Gen Zs at the moment leaving the country, going to Bali, going to Australia, and trying to set up online marketing companies or online social media companies, etc.
Well, super smart. I think
good luck to them.
Yeah, I think for a young person who's got the flexibility, the UK is not entrepreneur friendly at the moment, in this particular moment, and they're talking about trying to tax as much money as they can off of anyone who succeeds. And there's a little bit of an anti-success culture that's crept in, where being successful is judged with suspicion as opposed to being celebrated like it would be in the US or something like that. So there are these communities all over the world of entrepreneurs who celebrate success. They want to go to the gym together and get fit together. They want to make money together. So being part of an environment like that is a very positive thing. And also being out of an environment where if you succeed, they're going to take half is probably a very positive thing. So how easy is it to succeed? It's very, very hard. There is a narrow set of things that work, and there's a lot of things that sound good but don't work. So if you imagine a great analogy is airplanes. So there's a narrow set of airplanes that will fly, and there's plenty of things you could try that would crash. Now, there are certain people who know what flies and what doesn't fly. They're specialists in aerodynamics and they're specialists in pre-flight checklists, and they pilots and engineers. So if we went back in time 120 years ago, they came up with hundreds of different designs and all of those designs crashed, but then one worked, the Wright brothers. And then they learnt from that. And then it branched off, and essentially there's the trial and error crowd. And if there's sometimes at the different venues and pubs, they have these amateur things where you've got to invent something, and then you go down the ramp and you try and take off. And
right, I've seen, like with those? The plane,
the Birdman competitions and all this, and they build a bicycle, and it has to. So even today, even with everything, we've all been on a plane and we see how it flies. Even today, if an amateur attempts to build something that flies, it normally won't go more than, 10 feet, 20 feet. However, if a professional builds something that flies, it can fly all over the world at near, supersonic speeds. So there is a group of people who are entrepreneurs who know how to make things fly, and there are millions of people who think that they're entrepreneurs and they don't know how to make things fly. There's a very narrow little circle of things that work in business, and there's a massive canvas of things that don't work in business. So the trick is, you have to, I believe if you're young, you have to go and work for someone who knows how businesses work. And you have to learn for 2 years and do an apprenticeship for 2 years, because the trial and error could take 100 years just to get to where we are today. And as opposed to if you can work with someone who has a narrow set of things. So I boiled down the first 4 things that you need if you're going to start a business. We call it chaos, CAOS, right? So you need a concept, and you need to pick an audience, you need to construct an offer, and you need to be able to sell it. So it's concept, audience, offer, sales. And those are the first 4 things that get a business off the ground. And essentially, the success of any business comes down to those 4 things initially. Is it a good concept, pitched at the right audience, with a good offer that they respond to and sold in an effective way? So essentially, businesses that get their first 100,000 to 500,000, they've made good decisions with CAOS, and then they get off the ground pretty quickly.
What businesses, like we're speaking here, I know and you know there are hundreds of businesses. When I look and I see people starting a business, I think, I don't think that's going to work. I don't think it's work. What businesses would you not touch with the barge pole?
Personally, all businesses are a balance between demand and supply. So any business that you hear about is a good idea on a mainstream channel is probably not going to be a good idea for long, because there's now an oversupply of people entering that. So you always have to be looking for something that has high demand and low supply. Now, for me personally, a business I would never touch is anything where most of my customers are local. So, for example, if I have a restaurant and all of my customers typically are in 10-mile radius, that is a very difficult business to make it work. Because I'm competing for costs and attention and all of this sort of stuff in a tiny little geography. And even if I'm incredibly good at marketing and all of those sorts of things, people don't drive more than 10 miles to go to a restaurant normally. So I could be the best I could be phenomenal at this. It's very, very difficult and costly to scale. So
very difficult to earn money for being a restaurateur.
Yeah, exactly.
Very.
Because the fundamentals don't work. Same as nightclubs. You look at the nightclubs that did work very well, Ministry of Sound being a great example. They had a fixed venue, but then they figured out that they could actually sell the CDs all over the world, and they made way more money from selling stuff that could go global. And then people would travel from all over the world to go to the venue. So they figured out a model that would work. I'm looking for something where my customers could be anywhere in the world. That's one of my first things. I want customers who are anywhere in the world. I also want customers who repeat purchase, that they buy and buy and buy again. If I win a customer, they just automatically want more every single month. So recurring revenues is my other one. So I'm looking for any business. The businesses that I like are, they can scale globally as long as there's fast internet and there's recurring revenue. As long as I've won a customer, they want to keep purchasing again.
I don't think there's a better time to be an entrepreneur.
Oh, it's the best time.
Honestly, unreal. What we've gone through to where we are now, being able to use the internet, like people take for granted, being able to have social media that can go viral, and AI and all this stuff coming through at the moment. We'll go on to AI in a bit later, because that is a whole new world, which if people aren't jumping on it, they're going to be left behind.
They're left behind. But to be an entrepreneur today means that if you've just got a ChatGPT account, You've got a basic lawyer, a basic accountant, you've got a basic strategic advisor, you've got a copywriter, you've got a marketer. Yeah. You've got essentially a team of graduates for free helping you with your business for almost for free. So it's absolutely wild.
Well, let's jump on AI now.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go for it. How good is AI going to be for the majority of businesses over the next 3 years?
For the majority of businesses, it's going to probably leave them in the dust, and it'll be their doom because they're not using it, they're not paying attention to it. So it's going to be the equivalent of when electricity came in, and all the things that people did, that could then be automated by electricity. It's
that powerful.
Yeah. So if you I don't actually know what life was like before electricity, but I do actually. Here's a good analogy.
Well, you knew what life was like before the internet.
Yeah.
That's probably our closest thing, I take. Year 2000.
So the internet, and you notice that the internet didn't disrupt things all at once at the beginning, but then fast forward to today, it disrupted everything. Yeah. So it's slow at first, and then people
didn't believe it at first. They just thought it was a toy.
Well, there was the hype cycle, same as AI. Yeah. There's the initial hype cycle of, oh my goodness, we're going to be doing all sorts of things on the internet. And there were people saying, oh, the internet's going to be this incredible thing that changes the world. And then it didn't do it within the first 6 months. So everyone went, the internet's nothing. And then it crept up over 20 years. Disruption takes 15, 20 years. So what we're going to see is that there's a hype cycle with AI, and everyone goes, oh, this thing could do it, all sorts of stuff. And then 6 months later, or a year later, or 2 years later, we go, well, it hasn't replaced my job yet, so it mustn't be replacing anything.
Right.
But then fast forward 5 years, 10 years, it's like, oh, this thing replaced everything. There's a really interesting photo of New York in 1901, and every single vehicle on the street was a horse and car.
I've seen the London one.
And then 1912 or 1913, it's all cars. Yeah. So there was a 13-year gap where we went from horses to cars. And there's a chart that says how many horses per 1,000 people. And during that 12-year period, we went from 900 horses per 1,000 people down to less than 100.
Wow. In what, a 12-year period?
Yeah.
Wow.
So once we'd invented the motorized car, we just didn't need that many horses. I hate to say it, but a lot of humans are horses at the moment, right? So we only have them in a job because, you can't automate it. But AI, so I just did an acquisition. We spent £50,000 on fees, in legal fees. Yep. And we used AI a little bit, but knowing what I now know, we probably would have used it a little bit more.
Okay.
If I do that same acquisition again in 12 months' time, I will probably use AI to do half of what our lawyers did, and the legal bill will be 25 grand. And then in a year from now, a year after that, it'll be 12 grand.
Okay, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. Give me an example of what you use for AI for the bill to be 50 grand, and give me an example of what you would, now knowing what you know, for it to bring it down to 25 grand.
So we used AI to do letter of intent. So what we did is we transcribed our initial meetings using AI. We then summarized those meetings using AI, and then had AI create a draft letter of intent for the acquisition. And we created all the documents around end state press release and, so all of those initial documents that you typically do with when you do an acquisition, you want to do like a press we like to do an end state press release right at the beginning so that we're all on the same page.
Give me an example what you mean by that.
An end state press release is what's the press release we want to put out 6 weeks from now or 3 months from now.
After you've bought it?
After we've bought it. So an end state press release will be announcing Score App has just acquired Bucket. This is going to be great for customers because of this, this, and this. These features are going to be here. Ryan has just joined the board. So it's kind of like it's a document that says this is the end state that we're going for, and we want to make sure that there's alignment, that everyone says, yeah, that's exactly what we think we're buying into. We're trying to do that. Brilliant. As opposed to getting to the end and going, oh, wait a sec,
we need to do that. We had
a different idea. Oh, you want me to join the board? No, I didn't want to join the board. Yeah. Right. So you want to get.
That's powerful.
Yeah. So we used AI to generate those end state press releases. And we used AI to do letter of intent, or what we call here in the UK heads of terms. So those sorts of things we did. What I probably should have done is gone a step further and done due diligence pack. I should have got the AI to create an acquisition checklist and started working through the checklist before we engaged the lawyers.
Just hold on a minute. This is mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't this crazy?
Yeah.
This is like crazy to know that you can do all of this. Just break down what AI is and just break down what you were doing to get these results coming out the other end.
Well, we're just talking to it like we'd talk to any person. So
for the listener out there and anyone watching, you say you talk to it.
Well, you chat to it like it's a chat because it's called Chat GPT, isn't it?
So you're putting your mind into Chat GPT.
So I would literally say, we are doing an acquisition. The acquisition is between ScoreApp and Bucket.io. Bucket.io is a fast growth software company in the USA. ScoreApp is a fast growth software company in the UK. ScoreApp will be purchasing all the assets of Bucket.io and blah, blah, blah. Draft a checklist. So I might say draft a checklist of all the things that we need to consider during this acquisition period. And I might say draft a press release announcing the acquisition to the press. Add a section about this happening. Add a section about this happening. So then it'll produce the document.
In how long?
2-3 seconds.
My God. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is, I mean,
how far ahead do you personally think you are on this AI journey compared to the normal bod? On a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think you are in understanding AI compared to a normal businessman in running a business as an entrepreneur at the moment?
I've got a good business knowledge of AI, and I've got a good philosophical, like I understand how AI does its thing to a workable degree. Even experts can't tell you exactly how it does its thing. I have philosophical beliefs around AI and what it'll do to society, and I draw parallels to other technologies from the past, and I kind of go looking at how did those technologies impact business. I'm a few steps ahead on this.
Yeah.
I've got an AI start. I've got 2 AI software companies that I run.
Did you buy them or did you start them up?
I started Bookmagic.ai with co-founders.
Bookmagic?
Yeah.
What's Bookmagic?
So Bookmagic.ai is started with co-founders. If you've got an idea for a book, you talk to our AI, you use our software, and it will help you to get the idea out of your head and structure it into a whole bunch of chapters. It will then suggest analogies, research, case studies, examples that you could be writing about. So let's say you say, I'm going to do I'm going to do a book about how to be a festival promoter, right? And it'll say, okay, let's ask some questions. It'll ask you questions about who do you think the reader is, and it'll actually make suggestions right there and then about who the reader might be. And then it'll say, okay, well, here's some of the key ideas. Do you like this idea? Do you like this idea? And then it'll say, okay, in the introduction, what we're going to do is try and hook the reader to read the first few chapters. These hooks, we need these kind of analogies, these case studies, these stories. And then in chapter 1, we're going to cover coming up with a festival concept. And in chapter 2, we're going to talk about identifying your perfect festival goer. In chapter 3, we're going to talk about marketing. Securing artists will be chapter 4. So it'll just start,
sponsorship, catering.
It'll just start breaking it down. And then it'll take all of those chapters and it'll tell you what are the key questions that your reader will be asking. So for sponsorship, it'll say your reader wants to know, how do I find sponsors?
Yeah.
How do I reach out to sponsors? How do I secure deals with sponsors? Right. So it puts all those questions, it automatically populates that chapter.
For you to answer.
Yeah. So it tells you.
And how quick is this?
It happens almost instantaneously.
How mate, this is mind blowing.
It happens with
How quick could that business write a book on entrepreneurship of what I've gone through?
It's not going to write a book for you because
it's just leading you with the right questions, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you signed a deal with a major publisher, let's say you sign a deal with Wiley or Penguin or something like that, they're going to assign an editor to you. And let's say you were super famous and you've never written before, like you're Will Smith or something like that. They're going to assign someone to you who's going to help get all your ideas out of your head. This software is that, because if the AI writes the book for you, Amazon won't sell it. Amazon won't sell books that are AI generated, right? They've already said they're not doing that. Bookstores won't have it. But also, the book won't be you. It'll be a collection of all people and all knowledge synthesized by AI with a slight twist. So it's not going to be a good book. But what AI can do is AI can say, Dodge, you're talking to this type of person. They've got these kind of questions. You need to answer those questions for them. So
it's just prompting you the whole time.
Yeah, and it might look the AI might look at your writing and say, this chapter needs a good analogy. What about if you talk about trying to row a leaky boat? Or what about if you talk about trying to run a restaurant without the right ingredients? And you go, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I like that restaurant one. So you just come in with that.
Okay.
Or you might say it needs a case study. What about when Nike acquired this company? Or what about when Michael Jordan did this deal with Nike and they did the blah, blah, blah. So it's like, oh, yeah, I like that. Let's use an example of how this festival, Glastonbury and how they did it and blah, blah, blah. So it's pulling all of that information and trying to get you to write about stuff that will help you. But it just means that you're going to write your book twice as fast and it's going to be twice as good because you've had that support. That's the goal. Anyway, so that software, that's one of my AI startups. ScoreApp is an AI startup, and we just acquired another one.
That one you just acquired was Bucket.io.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's very similar to ScoreApp.
Very similar to ScoreApp. Why did you just take them out of the game?
We wanted to collaborate rather than compete.
Yeah.
B, we wanted some of the features that they've got that we thought, rather than copying them, let's bring those in. Yeah. And also, we want to be bigger in the US market. So this gives us a great start in the US.
Who identified this opportunity?
Do they came to me.
Did they?
Yeah.
And that comes full circle for key person of influence.
Yeah.
They come to you, knock on the door, say, would you like to have a chat?
Yeah, exactly. And it made total sense. And
How long did that, when they came to you, did you get excited straight away?
It did, yeah, because I knew who they were, and I try to avoid consuming Ryan's content because I don't want to parrot it, right? So I knew who Ryan was, but I didn't deep dive his content because I didn't want to plagiarize. But I knew this guy was doing really great things, and I'd only heard good things about him through my network.
Yeah.
And of course, when I'm running my company, people are like, oh, so have you heard of Bucket? And I'm like, yeah, I have heard of Bucket. And they're like, oh, have you seen it? And I'm like, I haven't created an account because I don't want to
know that you're having a look.
Yeah. No.
Or a bit of respect as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like to innovate genuinely. I don't want to copy, right? So I like to, I love copying businesses in other industries.
And tweaking it to yours.
Yeah. But I don't like to copy.
Yeah.
Because it's too hard to, once you see something that's a great idea that someone else is doing, it's too hard not to copy it. You're tempted. So I want to be an innovator. Anyway, so long story short, I was very pleased to get a call from Ryan, and he said, hey, look, why don't we collaborate rather than compete? You're doing great things. We're doing great things. Why don't we build one really bigger, more valuable company together? Lovely. Yeah.
How much did you pay for it?
I can't say. It's all in the thing, but it's a fast growth, successful company. It's covered in something called a non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah.
So you
but something like that, are you working with him? Are you paying over a certain amount of period? Are you paying the money up front?
Pay some up front and then pay some over a certain amount of period. So it's normal when you buy a decent sized company that you do earn out periods and you do future performance, and there's kind of milestones to unlock and all of that sort of stuff.
If you're collaborating, what are you doing? Are you going to use your brand, or are you going to use his brand and your brand, or just both?
Bucket's shutting down. So if you go to Bucket website now, it just says Bucket's been acquired by ScoreApp. Go here for the press release. Go here to create a ScoreApp account.
This is a game changer.
Yeah.
This is a game changer, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
Mate, I've got to put it there, mate. Quality. Tell me about your business, Dent.
So Dent is
Dent the umbrella company for everything, or is just another company?
Dent's another company.
Okay.
So it's the Entrepreneur Accelerator. Going back to 2010, I started writing a book called Entrepreneur Revolution, and I basically said the age of working for a big corporate is coming to an end. Highly skilled, highly talented people want to set up their own companies now. It used to be that it was too hard to set up a business, that you were better off working for a big brand. And then that changed, and I said, actually, in the future, you're better off running your own business or working on an entrepreneurial team. Yeah. So I think that's going to be a huge trend. Yeah. So I set up this entrepreneur accelerator for people who want to build a brand, build a business, stand out, scale up, make a positive impact in the world. So the word dent actually is from the Steve Jobs quote that an entrepreneur's job is to go out and make a dent in the universe.
Okay. Nice.
Otherwise, why bother? So Dent was created as a way of sharing entrepreneur best practices, creating that entrepreneurial safe network, and just basically creating an entrepreneur accelerator for people who want to go out and build a successful business. A lot of our clients are not startups. They're already at $1 million of revenue. They want to go to 5. A lot of them are at $500,000, want to go to 2 or 3.
Okay.
But the common element is that people recognize there's a new way of doing business. So the traditional way of doing business is to be geographically close to your clients. The new way of doing business is to be psychologically close to your clients.
Yeah.
So you can be psychologically close to someone provided you're creating content and they've got a screen. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
But geographically close, like look at McDonald's. They've opened 38,000 restaurants so that they can be geographically close to their audience because that's McDonald's. But then look at a business like Mr Beast. He's psychologically close to his audience. Look at a business like Score App. We are psychologically close to our clients, despite the fact that they're in 152 countries and we're here in the UK.
Yeah.
So, this new idea is how do you become more psychologically close to your clients in order to scale anywhere in the world? How do you build a product ecosystem based on intellectual property that scales? Yeah. So all of that's covered in depth.
So it's like a guidance for someone who's... Are you finding it's easier when someone turns over £500,000 or £1 million to buy into, the progress, what they can get from you and everything they can learn off you?
Yeah, we really love working with people who've already got 6 and 7 figures worth of revenue.
Okay.
Because it's kind of like if you've already got a car that's going, we can engineer it to go a lot faster and a lot better.
Turbocharger things.
If you're starting from scratch and saying what's a car and how do you start, right? It's a lot harder.
Yeah.
There's foundational knowledge that's just not there. We love working. I mean, our favorite is like we've got a lot of our clients started with $500,000 and a geographical time for money model, and a few years later they're at $5 million
and they're free.
And the business is recurring revenue, selling intellectual property. They're totally free. They can travel the world. We've got a lot of our clients who now literally just travel the world having a great old time. I bump into clients in Dubai and LA and they came and did the program when they were stuck in Brisbane or Sydney or Melbourne or Singapore. And, now they're like, I got a text actually late yesterday afternoon saying, it's not lost on me that KPI changed my life, Key Person of Influence Accelerator, that Dent changed my life. And he basically said, I'm now just living my dream.
What a nice feeling that must be for you.
It's pretty good. I've become very numb to it.
Yeah.
15 years of people saying we changed their life.
Yeah,
and I'm like, amazing. Another one.
Yeah, another one. How much is it for someone to go on that course? And how long is it?
Early stage revenue is $5,000 for the year. Late, a bit bigger, and it's $10,000 for the year. And basically it's $5,000 to $10,000. There's no equity exchange. A lot of accelerators want 5 to 10% of your business. It covers its costs. It's a great little business. It's profitable. But it's $5,000 to $10,000 for the year. It's cheaper than a bookkeeper, a lot cheaper than an MBA.
$5,000, £100 a week to learn all this. This is a no-brainer.
Yeah, and every week they do a 3-hour session. Yeah. So it's a 3-hour training session every single week.
On Zoom?
On Zoom. Yeah. It's networking. It's like joining CrossFit for your business
people. How many people, do you work in cohorts? Or just when people sign?
We used to. We now just have people just join and move on.
Yeah. What's the difference between you found doing cohorts and then just keeping it open each month and trying to close at the end of the month, I take it?
Cohorts kind of worked when we were, prior to COVID, we used to meet up in physical locations, and it was really nice to have a cohort that started together and went through a program together. But now that it's all online, we have different ways of connecting the right people. So rather than just the fact that you showed up in the same place at the same time, we have ways of knowing you should be talking to you, and you should, jump into this group, talk to these people. So we've got directories, and we use a bit of AI to guide people.
How many full-time staff you got working on Dent?
On Dent is about 30, I think.
30.
Yeah.
And you got 100 full-time staff working across the...
So I haven't checked in a while. So it's about 30 who work at Score App. It's about 30 that work at Dent. And then across the other businesses, on average it's 10-ish times a few other businesses. So
how many of those businesses do you own 100% of? None. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your thought process of not owning 100% as an entrepreneur?
Well, I think if you want to have a little family business that spits out cash and you just don't want, I mean, actually, I should say there's a business that my wife and I own together, and that's it.
Property,
right? There's some that there is some business. I don't count those, but when you're building a fast growth business, you need lots of people who buy in and engage. So if you take ScoreApp, for example, there's myself and my technical co-founder. So Steve, who actually runs that business, he's the CEO of ScoreApp. He is technical. He's a IT developer. He's got a 15, 20-year background building technology. He understands how to talk to developers. So I don't want him running off. I want him
locked in,
totally bought in.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I've also given him more shares than me. Or we've allocated more shares. He's given me less shares than him, right? We've allocated more shares to him. And the reason for that is because I do multiple things and I end up getting a secret asset off of all of the businesses, which is my personal brand grows. So I actually want people who I'm working with to be highly incentivized to build the value of that business. I feel like I have a value proposition, which is really guiding a business, bringing some good people to a business,
good people,
a bit of attention.
Yeah, okay.
Very focused in on things like deals or acquisitions or, doing a big deal. But then I might go 3-6 months and not do much.
I'm exactly the same. I prefer that.
There you go.
I can't be in it day to day.
Yeah.
That's not my bag. What we're good at is what we're good at. Just stay in our lane.
Yeah. And sometimes businesses do need capital.
Yeah.
So I bring in some angel investors. Sometimes businesses need, so ScoreApp, we've got several really well-known high-profile people who promote ScoreApp. And I said, do you want cash or do you want shares in the business? Cash, we're going to pay you this market rate. Shares, you might actually end up with 5 times as much.
Yeah, okay.
And they're like, well, I don't need cash. I'd rather some shares in the business.
Yeah.
So for me, I would rather someone who's got 2.5 million business followers going, oh, wait a second, I own a piece of that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Not 100%.
No, but 100%
I know,
to go.
I know what you meant.
What are your thoughts today on how hard it is to earn a pound note these days in this country? And I think it's only going to get harder
to earn
money, to earn profit in business. When I look at sort of florists, hairdressers, nightclubs, restaurants, car salesmen, people who are selling boats, everyone is in sectors we all know. Everyone's really struggling right now.
I hate to say it, but there's 2 economies. So I want you to imagine that for 100 years, we all get up every morning and run a marathon, right? So imagine that.
Yep.
So everyone gets up and runs a marathon. Some people are a little bit faster and do it in 4 hours. Some people are a little bit slower and they do it in 6 hours. Right, but roughly speaking, it's 4 to 6 hours is the marathon time that everyone does. So we all wake up and we all run a marathon. And then imagine that one day someone invents bicycles and you either hop on the bicycle and you ride the bicycle or you don't. Now, the people who ride the bicycle, they do it in like 2 hours. And not only that, they're not even anywhere near as exhausted at the end of it. They're having fun. Sometimes they're on their phone talking. Sometimes they're listening to music while they're cycling. Sometimes, they can just be hardly moving and just rolling and they're going faster. And people who are running the marathon are going, how are you cheating? You cheating asshole. And they're saying, what is going on with this inequality? The inequality of bicycle. They're not even noticing the bicycle, by the way. They're just saying inequality of these people versus us. Now imagine, fast forward, someone invents a car. Now the person in the car does 26 miles in half an hour and doesn't even break a sweat. And then now there's huge inequality. Wow, wait a second, it takes me 6 hours to do 26 miles. Why the hell is it taking you half an hour? Right? And you seem to not even break a sweat doing it. So what we have is we have a huge economy of people who run for a living. We have an economy of people who cycle for a living. And we have economy of people like me in cars. So the people who are on bicycles are leveraging technology, but in a small way. So they're probably using a bit of social media, and they've got a LinkedIn profile, and they maybe put some videos on YouTube, and they've got on their website, they've got a website and you can interact with it and all that sort of stuff. So that's the bicycle. The traditional employment is I just turn up and do things the way that I've always done it. So a key question would be, if someone from 1995 was teleported here, would they recognize your business? Would they understand how your business works? And if the answer is yes, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you're in steep trouble.
Right?
Yeah.
So, basically, if your business kind of looks like it always did for the last 20, 30, 40 years, you're in serious trouble right now. You're running. The fact that you're listening to this podcast probably means you're at least on a bicycle.
Yeah.
But then there's AI, which is the car. So you're just never going to compete with someone who's driving. You can't run a marathon faster than someone who's driving. Doesn't even matter if they're not very good at driving. They could be rubbish at driving. They could be, terrible. It could be your grandma, right? Your grandma is going to do a better job at driving a marathon than you are at cycling a marathon or running a marathon. So this is why we have massive inequality in the economy, because what is happening is that, people like me are coming along and having a lot of fun running 9 different businesses or however many it is, and they're all profitable and we smash it. My business is print money.
Yeah.
All of my team get paid really highly paid incomes. They don't work very hard. We have loads of fun. We go out to restaurants and we don't even have a place of work. We just work online together, and people can go on holidays and still be at work. And, some of our team members travel around the world while they're working. So we're living in a very different reality to most people.
How many of those 9 companies have you bought?
I bought quite a few. I'd have to. Sorry, I probably. I know that sounds so wanky to say. I'd have to kind of.
No. But it doesn't have to be specific. But if you were to say you had 9, roughly, have you bought 6?
Well, I bought Rethink Press, August Recognition. I just sold we've sold So Technology, bought it back, and we're selling it again. There is. We started ScoreApp, started Dent, started Book Magic. Started my own coaching, consulting, speaking business. I bought a share of Jammy. So basically, I've either bought in as a significant or I bought the whole company. Yeah. So I don't know, 5 bought and 3 or 4 started.
Yeah.
Like that.
Out of those 9, which excites you the most?
The one that I haven't started yet. No. the new idea.
Yeah. Is there one that really excites you? It's probably quite hard to say because
ScoreApp is super exciting. Look, I've got a passion. I'll tell you, I'm excited for each business in a different way. Dent, I believe we live in incredible times, absolutely amazing times. We live in this transformational time where anyone can build a global small business. Yeah. They can live and work on their own terms. They can go through incredible transformation. They can take their ideas and take it to market in a new way. I am absolutely passionate about sharing that with others, and Dent shares that with others. It develops entrepreneurs who stand out, scale up, make a positive impact in the world. It is a great business. I write books about it. I love to give talks for our Dent community. So Dent is just awesome. Yeah. ScoreApp is giving people a tool to take their business to market in a whole new way. It gives people customer insights and segmentation. It works with data and AI. I love the team. I love our customers. I love what we've done to transform our customers' businesses.
How are you generating more customers for ScoreApp? What marketing do you do?
The marketing that's working best for ScoreApp is search engine optimization. Yeah. We create a lot of content. So every week we have a content machine. Long 1,500 word articles go onto the blog. Each one of those articles is an asset. We unpack a very niche research topic and we just put like a 1,000, 1,500 word article together. We do videos about that, and then Google picks up on it and sends people there.
Yeah, okay. And is that all done by AI again?
No, actually, because Google can tell it's AI. So we
won't give you any love.
We have a team of researchers.
Okay.
We spend about £40,000 a month on research and content creation for that business. So that's called SEO, search engine optimization. And it's actually headed up by our team at Jammy, who is our agency that does search engine. Jammy Digital does search engine optimization research.
And you own Jammy?
Yeah, or a piece of Jammy.
A piece of Jammy.
Yeah.
Do you cross payments over?
Yeah.
Like the 40 grand, okay, we'll give you that, you do that, but we know you've got a great team and you're going to make it work.
Exactly. Okay. And also Jammy's got a dozen other clients doing the same. So it's its own business. And then for Dent, it's a combination of content and ads. So for that business, we actually have lots of ads that send people to introduction workshops and free books and free scorecards. And then that goes to our sales team.
So give me an example, free books. You're giving your books out for free.
Yeah.
So an advert would go out on Instagram, say, via you talking.
Yep.
They would click
I'd say book into an event where we're going to talk about the entrepreneurial journey and get a free copy of the book Key Person of Influence sent to you. And
so you say book into that event. Is that a Zoom? Is that a
Zoom call,
webinar that people can just join? How many people can you get at one time?
300-400.
Right.
So we'll have 300 or 400 people
just pop up, and then you'll be there talking to them, saying, "Guys, this is what this business can do for you."
This is what we do. Yep.
Wow.
So we do an introduction, and there's 4 of us who do that introduction. So we do about one. I do about one a month, but there's 3 other people who do one a month, which means we do one a week.
Fantastic.
We get about 600 or 700 people a week booking, and about 300 show up.
So less than 40%.
Yeah,
maybe.
40% show up.
That's a good hit rate.
Yeah,
amazing hit rate. In fact.
Yep.
And then from there, what are they doing from there? You're not pushing anyone. You're just saying this is what we can do for you to help your business.
If they see the introduction and they like what they see, then the next step is that they book in for a one-to-one with the team.
And have they given they've given their details already, haven't they?
Yeah, they just use a link, book in, and then they present their business to my team. My team give feedback, and then we present them back with a proposal to come and work on the accelerator. And if they like the proposal, they click a link and purchase them. We onboard them.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And there's that when you look at like the $5,000 one, do you there must be a revenue that you say that I don't think this is for you just yet.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
There is.
It's not so much a revenue. There are people who've got no revenue, but they've got an amazing background.
Yeah, they're going to smash it.
They're going to kick the doors down.
Yeah, okay.
And then there are people that are like, like, the other day I met someone who said, I want to do something with robotics. And I went, okay, what do you want to do with robotics? I don't know, but I just think robots are cool and I'd like to do something with robotics. Okay, what sort of background have you got? I've just finished a university course in this, and it had nothing to do with robotics. Okay, and I'm just like, I hear you. Yeah, I'm just like,
But apart from that, do you look at? You asked what their revenue turnover was last year or the last few years, and someone says $500,000. You think about $500,000, they're going to part with $5,000, £100 a week.
It's not that. It's not that. If they're at $500,000, the strategy that we recommend is different to earlier stage. So the strategy is more intense. The group is at a higher level. There's more going on. So that'll be $10,000 for the year.
Yeah, okay.
And it's very hands-on, and we're guiding them from that $500,000 up to the couple of million.
Yeah, okay.
The early stage strategy is going to be a little bit different. There's only 4 things: chaos, concept, audience, offer, sales. So we're going to work on those 4 things, and they might graduate up earlier. So they might go through and do that. So a lot of the time they upgrade to the 1,000 a month or the $10,000 a year.
Yeah.
Because we've achieved these certain targets, they've seen their revenue grow, and now they're ready to go to the next one. So we have
Do you have good retention?
Incredible. Yeah, people stick around for years, and they can cancel at any time. So, we're doing something right.
So if someone joined up, they would have a Zoom call 3 times a month. Did you say
or every week?
Once a week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And apart from that, they're working on what they've got to work on. When they come back to that Zoom, they're like, guys, what have you done this week? So
there's accountability.
Okay. Yeah.
But remember I was saying before, there's only a narrow set of things that work. So you've got to guide people towards that narrow set. There are many planes that won't fly and a few planes that will fly. We have to guide people towards designing something that will fly.
Yeah.
So there's the process is what you'd call design principles. So designing something that will fly means that it follows aerodynamic principles. Now think about, I'm using this as an analogy, but think about how long through trial and error it would take you to figure out that the bottom of the wing has to be flat and the top of the wing has to be curved, and that if you have that shape of the wing, it will take off much easier. It might take you years, right, to figure that out. But how long does it take for me to explain it to you?
Yeah.
It takes me minutes.
Yeah.
So if I say aerodynamic, low pressure air flows underneath, higher pressure goes over the top, and that creates lift. And I explain that to you in 20 minutes. Then forevermore, you now know how to.
Yeah. Well, you could save people years.
Yeah, we
and
do.
a lot of money.
We do. We save people years and a lot of money.
And if you're new to entrepreneurship, there's so much money lost in those first few years of not knowing really what to do, or just guessing, throwing things against the wall, guessing.
And also, you're massively influenced by all the businesses you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And the truth is, you don't know whether those businesses are working or not.
Successful or not.
And you also don't know the context. So, for example, your mate who's just done this drink.
James Smith, big shout out, New Tonic.
So I might go, let's say I'm a new entrepreneur. I go, okay. My experience of this is that you need to have a can and you need to have a bright, colorful image, and you need to have lots of caffeine and vitamins. But actually, the context of this business working might be that you need to have 3 million followers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, on Instagram.
Yeah.
And actually, all this is just noise if you don't have 3 million followers on Instagram. Because this is a high volume business. You got to have a lot of people buying these cans because it's high volume, low value, right? How much is one of these? Two quid,
Couple
3
of quid,
quid,
I'd imagine.
right?
Like a couple of quid.
So 2 or 3 quid. So you got to sell a lot of them.
A lot. Yeah.
So the question is, how are you going to sell a lot? Now, I see a lot of entrepreneurs, they see something like this and they go, I want to create something like this. Well, how are you going to sell a lot? You're not. So this is not a good place to start for most entrepreneurs.
Tell me about your experience being invited on to Steven Bartlett's show.
Well, I was out skiing with the family in Switzerland, and I just get a text message on Instagram, Steven Bartlett, do you want to come onto the podcast? And I'm halfway down a mountain and I go, that's a scam, right? So I just kind of check my phone. I'm like, it's a scam. So I didn't think much of it.
On Insta?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought, because people clone his account and all this other stuff, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah. Do you want to be on Diary of a CEO? Okay. So I genuinely didn't even give it a 1% chance that it was real. It was just 100% it's a scam. So I just skimmed past it. And then I got down and we were having lunch and I pulled out my phone again and I thought, okay, I'll bite. I'll click on it, right? So I click on it and it's like a message says, I just saw you on Ali Abdaal's podcast and do you want to come on to Diary of a CEO and be a guest? I'm like, that's got to be a scam. So I click on the profile. There's millions of followers. I'm like, gee, that's a really good scam. So I think, okay, I'll get scammed. Yeah, sure, I'll come on the podcast, Steven. What's the next step? He comes back. Well, do you have an assistant? I'll put my assistant in touch with your assistant and make a time. Okay.
We're on.
So that happened on a Thursday, and then the assistant comes back, and I'm thinking, wow, this could be real. So I think, I'm going to have 3 months to prepare. I'll lose some weight and get a haircut and buy a fancy outfit. And the assistant comes back and says, okay, we're filming Monday.
Right.
So I literally
Did you fly back to it? I'm going.
I flew back, did the podcast, then flew back to the site.
Brilliant.
So I flew all in one day and did.
What did you find? What did you find? You've been on a number of podcasts.
A lot of them, yeah.
Yeah. What did you find when going on Steven's, how you blew up? Because that blew up really quickly.
It did, yeah. 3 million, very rapidly, 3 million views. Well, I mean, it's been phenomenal. It brought in millions of pounds worth of revenue. And I was giving talks as a conference speaker from time to time. I'd probably get booked 2 or 3 times a month. And it was like $5,000, $3,000 to $5,000 kind of as a normal speaking fee. And then after Diary of a CEO, it's like 15, 20, 25 grand. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
So international speaking is like 20 to 30,000 a day now if I go.
Happy days,
right? And it's like,
good for you.
Yeah, there's a few of those every month now.
Good for you.
But that's down to Steven. I owe him a Rolex or something.
Yeah. Have you given him anything?
I need to.
Send him a little present.
I've at least send him a Christmas card.
What was your experience? Did he pick you up in a car? How did it all work? Or did you just get yourself there? So I've heard different things. I've got friends who've been on there.
To be honest, they offered me to pick me up in a car and all that sort of stuff. I said, look, I already have my ways of getting around. Let me just do my thing. I'd rather work with, my assistant books my car and blah, blah. So anyway, so I said, so I turn up, bump into Steven at the door. So as we're going up the thing together, so we go up the elevator together, there's 30 people in the room getting ready. So it's quite an overwhelming experience. And then they sit down, they all just disappear out the back. There's you, Steven, and one guy in the room, and then film for a couple of hours. and they ask at the end, they say, is there any other points you want to make that are for short reels? And do you want to, is there anything you said that you wanted to go back and change? We're happy with the first way that we open. So they kind of just do that. They're thinking about edits, so do we need to capture anything for the edits? Then the 30 people come back and they already have thumbnails, blog ideas, social media posts,
the whole
titles. So it turns out they've been up in the back the whole time watching. I didn't realize they were watching. They've got their screens and their things. They're taking notes. They've started the whole process. And then they're like, okay, great. It'll go live next Thursday. And you're like, what? Powerful. Wow, less than 2 weeks.
He's a machine.
It's a machine.
It's a machine, isn't it? He's got 55 staff working on his personal brand.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
his podcast, personal brand, and other bits.
He's got a very valuable ecosystem. So he has, when you think about it, 7, almost 8 million subscribers today. That's a big business. That's bigger than CNN or Fox or any of those sorts of businesses. That is one of the biggest media businesses in the world. So in that context, 50 people is nothing compared to, most of Steven's videos are probably getting more views than most some TV. BBC stuff, right? So, traditionally, a media business that size would have hundreds of employees. But he's super clever because he's also brought up all these businesses that he can then promote through his channels. So he can have, Zoe or Huel or any of those kind of businesses floating around. I was in the airport the other day, and if you go into W.H. Smith, there's a Steven Bartlett section of books that he reads called Diary of a CEO Selects. There's a Huel vending machine selling you Huel things. There was one other thing, but he's there's 3 or 4 Steven Bartlett products that are in the airport, right? So, and there's also his books as well. So there's all this kind of stuff that he's got going on. And then on top of that, there's things like his speaking fees. So his speaking fees would be 50 to 100 grand every time. So if he does 3 or 4 of those, there's a few million a year. Kind of almost just in the impact on his speaking fees pay for pretty much 50 people.
It's unreal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very well-oiled machine. It's very strategic. He's brilliant at what he does. He's lovely, by the way. He's actually a really easy guy to get along with. I've kept in touch with him. We text every now and then.
What was your perception of Steven before you went onto his podcast compared to what it was like when you left the podcast?
I thought that he would probably be quite arrogant, too cool for school. I thought that he was all style, no substance. Those were kind of the worst thoughts that I might have had about him. And then I realized when I meet him, he's incredibly deep thinker. He's philosophical. He's got a strategy. He's works incredibly hard, nonstop. He's incredibly mentally disciplined. He's thoughtful. He's caring. He looks after people around him. So I couldn't have been more wrong.
That's lovely to hear. Very nice. What's one business you would set up if you only had £500 to your name?
Well, if I only had £500 to my name, I'm not going to set up a business. I'm going to go work for an entrepreneur. I really strongly believe you do your apprenticeship. You do your apprenticeship. You don't be a number 1 unless you've been a really good number 2. What most people want to do is they want to skip to being a black belt. And it's like, you don't get to be a black belt. You don't get to be the instructor of the class until you've worked your way through the belts. So the goal is to start on someone's team where you massively look up to them and inspired by them, and never, ever be outworked by anyone else on the team. So be the hardest worker, be the most creative. When I worked for John, I was brutal with my discipline. I did not want anyone to outwork me. I wanted to be the earliest in there and the last to leave. It was often the case that I would go in at 7 a.m. and John would come in at 7:15, 7:30. We'd grab breakfast together or go for a walk together. Everyone else is coming in at 9. I've already done an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I've had some one-to-one time with John. It was often the case that everyone would finish at 6, 5:30, 6 o'clock. I'd be there till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, finishing up stuff, getting ahead of the following week.
Like a sponge, learning everything.
John would still be in his office. The last two, it was the two of us, we'd often grab dinner together. John would say to me, I'm heading down to Sydney. I'd say, can I drive you to the airport?
Yeah.
He goes, oh, Dan, don't worry about it. I'm going on Sunday night. I'm getting a late flight on Sunday night. Don't worry about it, John. I'll drive you, right? And he'd say, oh, that's nice of you, because otherwise his wife was going to drive him down, and they've got little kids. And I said, let me drive you. And he'd say, oh, I'm fly back on Wednesday. Oh, let me pick you up from the airport. I say, or he said, oh, I'm getting a late flight. It's a 10 p.m. landing. Don't worry about it. Let me pick you up. So,
find that entrepreneur who you respect and show the graft and grit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, here's the funny thing. There comes a point in your career where you can snap your fingers and raise as much money as you like. So you don't need any money. At that point, you don't need any money. Money's just another ingredient.
Yeah.
In the same way that you just say, oh, well, Facebook ads, I just go to Facebook and get Facebook ads. Bank account, well, I go to the bank and get a bank account. Oh, money, I just go to the investors and get the money that I need. And it's just another ingredient in the business. I personally think I could probably, if I had an idea right this minute, I could probably effortlessly raise $500,000 tomorrow. Like if I
raise from yourself or go up to people and say just angels or just yourself?
My network and my reputation. If I wanted to,
if you believed in something, you go, we need to have a look at this.
Well, here's what I'd do. I'd say, I've come up with a business idea. I'm going to put on a Zoom call on Friday where I explain the business idea. I'm going to look for some angel investors. I'll probably select 10 to 20 angel investors to do the first $500,000. If you're interested, join me on the Zoom call. Let me know. I'll give you the Zoom link.
Brilliant.
And then I'd probably have, 50 people on my Zoom call. And then I'd select who I want as my angel investors on that. And half of them would miss out.
Yeah.
Right? So they'd be sitting there saying, oh, can I come in for 50 grand? I say, nah, 25.
Yeah.
So there comes a point where it's effortless because of what you've achieved with someone else. Like my ex-employees, they can easily raise money because they say, oh, well, I've just helped do this and launch
this and this with Daniel's businesses. Yeah.
So raising money is easy.
So they're leveraging your name.
So if you're sitting around saying, oh, I've got no money and no one trusts me and no one this, okay, take that as a sign. You're not ready. You're not the black belt ready to instruct the class. You're not even the brown belt ready to be the assistant to the black belt. It's okay to be a white belt. In these days, it only takes 2 to 3 years to get you to get going. So go work for an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Daniel, I've absolutely loved this.
I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. What a lovely conversation. I reckon we could go on for ages.
We could, but most of the people on your show are like SAS and they've like shot guns and
we've had everyone.
You've had DJs.
Yeah.
I feel incredibly boring compared to most of your
No,
guests.
but this is interesting. A lot of people are going to learn a lot from this. That's why we're here. Two entrepreneurs having a good chat. But where can people find you?
So LinkedIn is a place that I connect with a lot of people. X is another place I connect with a lot of people. Instagram. My books are all on Amazon. There's 6 books that I've written.
Fantastic.
Different stages. And then, you know what? We mentioned the Zoom call. Jump on my Zoom call and I'll, I talk through the entrepreneurial journey and people can go to dent.global or scoreapp.com and
Brilliant.
You'll find me.
Brilliant. Just type his name in. You'll find Daniel. Dan, love this, mate. Thank you so
likewise.
much. Yeah,
Cheers.
thank you so much for making the effort come down.
Fantastic.
Yeah, you're a gentleman. Good man. Cheers, mate.